My mother smells like pee, my daughter said at dinner, seconds before I called the number that would change my destiny forever. I never thought 5 words could shatter 63 years of life in a single moment. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if for a second you feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you hit the like button and subscribe. It will help me to keep getting this off my chest. It was a Sunday evening in Chicago. Chloe's dining room glowed under the golden light of the chandelier I had given her as a wedding gift. The crystal glasses reflected the candlelight, creating tiny rainbows on the cream-colored walls. Everything looked perfect, just as my daughter always demanded. I was seated at the corner of the table where they always put me, far from the center of the conversation, close to the wall, like another piece of furniture. I was wearing my navy blue dress, the only one that still fit after losing so much weight these past few months. My hands, wrinkled and spotted with age, trembled slightly as I cut the roast chicken Chloe had prepared. My grandson Mason, 8 years old, was playing with his mashed potatoes, making them fly across his plate while making airplane noises. My granddaughter Lily, 12, never looked up from her phone, typing messages with the speed of someone born in the digital age. Mark, my son-in-law, was talking about his real estate investments in that deep voice he used when he wanted to impress someone. Chloe was serving dessert, a cheesecake she'd bought from the fancy bakery downtown, when she suddenly stopped. Her green eyes, so much like mine when I was her age, fixed on me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Mom," she said, setting the platter down on the table with a thud that made the glasses clink. "We need to talk about something." The air in the dining room grew thick. Mark looked up from his phone. The kids kept to themselves, oblivious to the coming storm. "About what, honey?" I asked, feeling my throat go dry. Chloe exchanged a look with Mark. He nodded, as if giving her permission to continue. "It's just, well, lately we've noticed certain things." "What things?" My daughter took a deep breath, as if preparing for a leap into the void. "My mother smells like pee." The words fell on the table like stones in a silent pond. The children looked up. Mark cleared his throat. I felt the world crumble beneath my feet. "I'm so sorry, Mom, but I had to say it. You can't control yourself properly anymore, and it's uncomfortable for all of us." Humiliation burned my cheeks as if I'd been slapped. My eyes filled with tears, but I held them back. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. "Grandma, is it true you wet yourself?" Mason asked with the cruel innocence of a child. "Mason, don't be rude," Chloe scolded. But her tone held no real reprimand. It was more for show. Mark wiped his mouth with his napkin and leaned forward. "Look, Barbara, we understand it's part of aging. It's not your fault. But we have to think about the kids, the house, and us too," Chloe added. "Mark and I work all day. We can't be keeping an eye out for these accidents." Accidents? What were they talking about? I didn't have incontinence problems. It was true that a drop might escape when I coughed hard, normal for my age. But I had never had an accident like they described. Then I understood. It wasn't about my personal hygiene. It was about them wanting to get rid of me, and they had found the perfect excuse. "We've been doing some research," Chloe continued, pulling a brochure from under her napkin. "There's a beautiful facility just outside of Chicago. It's called Maplewood Senior Living. They have gardens, activities, doctors specialized in geriatrics." "A nursing home?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "Yes, Mom. It's what's best for you. You'll be with people your own age. Professionals will take care of you. You'll have set meal times, managed medications. And we can visit you on weekends," Mark added with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Lily finally looked up from her phone. "Is Grandma going to an old folks' home?" "It's a luxury assisted living facility, Lily," her mother corrected, "with all the amenities." I looked at them as if they were strangers. These people, who ate at my table, who lived in the house I had helped pay for, whom I had raised and loved with every fiber of my being, were casting me aside like an old piece of furniture that no longer matched the decor. "What if I don't want to go?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Chloe sighed, as if my question were another annoyance. "Mom, it's not negotiable. We've already spoken with social workers. They said that at your age, and with your issues, it's the most responsible thing to do. What social workers? When? Last week, when you went to the farmer's market. We took the opportunity to make some inquiries. They had been planning this behind my back. While I was buying vegetables to make the lasagna they loved so much, they were arranging my exile. The cheesecake remained untouched on my plate. The taste would have been bitter anyway. Everything tasted of betrayal, of a forced goodbye, of the end of a story I thought had more chapters left to write. That night, lying in my small room, which had once been the laundry room, I stared at the ceiling for hours. Chloe's words echoed in my head. My mother smells like pee. It wasn't just a cruel lie. It was the perfect excuse to get rid of me without feeling guilty. It was the justification they needed to convince themselves they were helping me, when in reality, they were abandoning me. At 3 a.m, when the house was finally silent, I took my cell phone from the nightstand drawer. I had a number saved for years, one I never thought I'd have to use. With trembling fingers, I dialed my lawyer. The voice of Mr. Miller sounded sleepy on the other end. "Barbara? Are you all right? It's 3 a.m. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, but I need to know something urgently. My house in Lincoln Park, the one I bought with my husband Anthony, is it still in my name?" There was a pause. I heard papers shuffling in the background. "Let me check at the office tomorrow and confirm. But as I recall, yes, it's in your name. Has something happened?" "They're going to put me in a home, Mr. Miller. And I'm afraid they want to take everything from me. Barbara, come see me tomorrow. First thing. There are things we need to talk about." I hung up and stared at the dark screen. In the darkness of my room, memories began to play like a black and white film. How had I gotten here? When had I become a burden to my own children? It all started when Anthony died, 4 years ago. My husband had been a CTA bus driver for 30 years. A good, hard-working man who got up at 5 a.m. to take people to their jobs, to their lives. He never complained, never missed a day. His heart attack was so sudden we didn't even have time to say goodbye. After the funeral, when I returned to our empty house in Lincoln Park, that 3-story house we had bought with so much effort in the 80s, Chloe showed up with her key. "Mom, you can't stay here alone. It's too big for you. Come stay with us for a few days until you get on your feet." A few days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And months into 4 years of a borrowed life in the smallest room of her house, treated like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. But I hadn't always been a burden. There were years, so many years, when I was their salvation. I remembered when Chloe divorced her first husband, Michael. She was 25 with a little girl, Lily. Michael had run off to Miami with his secretary, leaving her broke and neck-deep in debt. Chloe came to my house in tears, with 2 suitcases and a child who wouldn't stop asking for her daddy. "Mom, I have nowhere to go. I have no job, no money." Anthony and I took her in without question. We turned our guest room into a room for her and Lily. I took care of the baby while Chloe looked for a job. I paid for her to take an accounting course, bought her clothes for interviews, and watched Lily for 6 months until she found a job at an accounting firm. When she met Mark 2 years later, she needed money for the wedding. Anthony and I gave them our savings, $20,000 we had set aside to fix the roof. "We'll pay you back as soon as we can, Mom," Chloe promised, with tears in her eyes. She never did. Then came Mason. Chloe had complications during childbirth and was on bed rest for 2 months. Who took care of the baby? Who got up every night for his bottle? Who changed thousands of diapers while his mother recovered? I did. When Mark lost his job in 2015 during the recession, who paid their mortgage for 8 months? Who sold her grandmother's jewelry so they wouldn't lose their home? I did. When Lily needed a laptop for high school, when Mason wanted soccer lessons, when the washing machine broke, when the car broke down, I was always there with my wallet. But it wasn't just financial sacrifices. It was years of my life, given unconditionally. I got out of bed and walked to the window. Through the glass, I could see the city lights of Chicago twinkling like fallen stars. My reflection showed an old, stooped woman with white hair in a messy braid. When had I become invisible to my own children? I remembered the last Christmas we all spent together in my Lincoln Park house. It was December 2019. I had prepared dinner for 12 people: Chloe, Mark, the kids, my younger son Chris, who had come from Denver with his family, some neighbors who had no family. I cooked for 3 days: roast turkey, stuffing, green bean casserole, homemade apple and pumpkin pies. The table shone with my best china, the white porcelain with gold trim I had inherited from my mother. During dinner, everyone talked about their plans, their jobs, their trips. I served. I cleared. I washed dishes. I brought more wine. I was invisible at my own table. At the end of the night, after everyone had left, I found Chloe and Mark whispering in the kitchen. "This house is too much for her alone," Mark was saying. "It could sell for a lot of money, with what a square foot is worth in Lincoln Park now." "I know," Chloe replied, "but I don't know how to tell her. She's so stubborn. We have to find a way. An assisted living facility would be good for her. She'd have company, medical care, and we could use the money from the sale to expand our house. The kids need more space." They went quiet when I walked in to get more dirty dishes. They pretended to talk about the weather. That night, I understood that my house wasn't seen as my home, but as an early inheritance that was taking too long to arrive. Since then, the comments became more frequent and crueler. "Mom, don't you think this house is too much work for you? Mom, the garden is so neglected. You used to keep it so beautiful. Mom, the stairs are dangerous at your age. You could fall. Mom, living alone isn't good for anyone your age." Each sentence was a drop of poison disguised as filial concern, and I, like a fool, started to believe them. I started to doubt my ability to care for myself. I let them convince me that moving into their house was temporary, that it was for the best. I sold the Lincoln Park house. The money went directly into their account, for safekeeping, according to Chloe. "This way you don't have to worry about a thing, Mom. We'll handle everything." $800,000. The fruit of a lifetime of work, of sacrifices, of dreams fulfilled. My home, where I had raised my children, where I had mourned my parents, where I had loved Anthony for 30 years. Now I lived in a windowless room, eating what they gave me, wearing clothes they bought me, asking for permission to go out and buy a newspaper. I had become a prisoner in my own jailer's home. But this morning, something had changed. The humiliation of the dinner, the lie about my supposed incontinence, the threat of the nursing home, it had all awakened a fury I thought was long dead. I went back to bed, but not to sleep, to plan, because for the first time in 4 years, I was going to fight for what was mine. The next morning, I woke to the sound of the coffee maker. It was 6:30. Chloe and Mark were getting ready for work. I stayed in bed for a few more minutes, pretending to sleep, listening to their morning conversation. "Did you tell her about the appointment at the facility?" Mark asked as he poured coffee. "Not yet. Better to tell her after she sees the place. That way she can't refuse." "Good plan. My sister said her mother-in-law had a tough time adjusting at first, but now she loves it." "Of course, because she has no choice," Chloe laughed. "Once they're in, they get used to it." They spoke of me as if I were a problem pet to be surrendered to a shelter. I got up silently and went to the bathroom. As I passed the kitchen, I pretended I had just woken up. "Good morning," I mumbled. "Oh, morning, Mom," Chloe said without looking up from her phone. "I left you coffee in the pot. And there's bread on the table. Day-old bread, hard as a rock. Cold coffee that tasted like dirty water. This was my daily breakfast, while they enjoyed fresh croissants and freshly brewed coffee. Mark got up to leave. As he passed me, he wrinkled his nose. "Barbara, you should change that robe. It smells off." It was the same robe I'd worn for 2 days, because my other 2 were in the laundry basket, and Chloe had decided laundry was only done once a week to save water. "I have an important meeting today," Chloe announced, gathering her papers. "I won't be back until 9. There's food in the fridge for you to heat up for lunch." Prepared food meant 2-day-old leftovers that had lost all flavor. "The kids get home from school at 5. Keep an eye on them, okay? But no more than an hour of TV. And no sweets before dinner." I had gone from being their mother to being a free babysitter, but a babysitter they neither respected nor paid. When they left, I was alone in the house. It was the only time of day I could breathe without feeling like I was in someone's way. I walked through the rooms I once considered my temporary refuge, and now were my permanent prison. The living room was decorated with family photos, but I wasn't in any of them. It was as if I had been erased from my own family's history. On the mantelpiece were portraits of Chloe and Mark on vacation in Florida, of the kids at school, of birthdays and celebrations. I, who had been present for all those moments, had vanished from the family's visual memory. I went to the fridge to find my prepared food. I found a container with dry leftover lasagna and a few pieces of chicken that were starting to look off. In the fruit drawer were mushy oranges and a black banana. For them, there were Greek yogurts, prosciutto, fresh cheeses, seasonal fruits. My stomach growled, but I preferred to make myself a piece of toast with butter. At least it tasted like something. At 10 in the morning, I left for Mr. Miller's office. I carried a plastic bag with all the documents I could gather. Old bank statements, receipts from the sale of my house, some bills that proved my financial contributions to the family. The office was in the Loop, in a historic building with a vintage elevator. I went up to the third floor, where a golden plaque announced, David Miller, attorney at law. Mr. Miller was a man in his 50s, bald, with thick glasses and a serious but kind expression. He had been Anthony's lawyer for years and knew our family situation well. "Barbara, please have a seat," he said, gesturing to a leather chair in front of his dark wood desk. "Tell me what happened." I explained everything. The humiliation from the night before, the plans to put me in a home, my suspicions about the money from my house sale. As I spoke, he took notes in a yellow legal pad. "Let's see," he said when I finished. "According to my files, you sold your property in Lincoln Park in March of 2020 for $800,000. The money was transferred to a joint account in your name and your daughter Chloe's name." Joint? It means you both can access the money, but for large withdrawals, both signatures are needed. Have you authorized any large transactions in these years? I shook my head. I didn't even have the login information for that account. Chloe had told me it was safer that way. The lawyer frowned as he reviewed some papers. "Barbara, there are several transactions here that worry me. Transfers to your daughter's personal account, payments on their current mortgage, large purchases, and your signature appears on all the documents. But I never signed anything. Then we have a serious problem." He showed me copies of the bank documents. Indeed, there was my signature, but I knew it wasn't mine. It was close, but there were small differences only I could see. The curve of the B, the length of the final stroke. Someone had been forging my signature for years. "Mr. Miller, what can I do?" "First, I need you to file a police report for forgery. Second, we're going to immediately request that the account be frozen pending an investigation. And third, I need you to give me all the details about how they convinced you to move in with them." While he prepared the paperwork, I remembered other episodes I had tried to forget, like the time I got sick with a high fever. Instead of taking me to a doctor, Chloe left me in my room with some Tylenol and told me it wasn't a big deal. I shivered with fever for 3 days, with no one checking on me. Finally, it was Lily who grew worried and convinced her mother to call a doctor, or my 62nd birthday. I waited all morning for someone to wish me well. Nothing. At noon, Chloe rushed in from outside. "Mom, I completely forgot it was your birthday, but I bought a cake from the supermarket. We can have it tonight?" It was a cheap chocolate cake, the kind sold in a plastic tray. She didn't even bother putting it on a nice plate. The kids sang happy birthday reluctantly, watching the clock. Mark didn't even come down for dinner. "I have an important video call," he said from his office. That night, when I was clearing the dishes, I found the nearly whole cake in the trash. "It just had too much sugar," Chloe apologized. "The kids can't eat that stuff." But the following week, for Mark's birthday, the whole family went all out. Chloe cooked for 2 days, bought expensive wine, invited friends. Mark got gifts, flowers, toasts. His cake was homemade. 3 layers, decorated with fresh fruit. The contrasts were painful, but I had learned to swallow my tears. "Barbara," the lawyer's voice pulled me from my memories. "I've prepared a strategy. We'll act with discretion at first. We don't want them to realize you're investigating. Can you continue living there for a few more weeks, pretending everything is normal?" "I suppose so." "Good. In the meantime, I'll investigate all the bank transactions. I also need you to look for any documents you might have in your room. Receipts, letters, anything that proves your financial contributions to that family. I left the office feeling strange. For the first time in years, someone had listened to me without judgment, without telling me I was exaggerating or misinterpreting things. For the first time, someone believed me. When I got home, the kids were watching TV. They had made their own after-school snack: cookies, juice, chocolate. The kitchen was a mess. "Hi, Grandma," Lily greeted me without taking her eyes off the screen. "How was school?" "Fine," Mason mumbled. I tried to start a conversation, but it was like talking to a wall. When Chloe got home at 9, the kids ran to hug her and tell her all about their day. They treated me like a piece of furniture. During dinner, Mark announced they were going to Lake Geneva for the day on Saturday, with some friends. "You'll stay with the kids, Mom," Chloe said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "There isn't enough room in the car for everyone." Another lie. They had a 7-seat SUV. They just didn't want me to come. I didn't fit their image of a young, successful family. That night, before bed, I rummaged through my drawer and found an old notebook where I kept track of my expenses. For years, I had written down every dollar I had given them: the tuition for Chloe's master's degree, the furniture for their first house, the kids' gifts, the bills I'd paid when they couldn't. The list was endless. More than $120,000 in total. Money they had never paid back and probably never would. But it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about dignity, respect, reclaiming my right to exist as more than a tolerable nuisance. I put the notebook in my purse. I would take it to Mr. Miller tomorrow. For the first time in a long time, I fell asleep with a smile on my lips. On Wednesday morning, while Chloe was in the shower, I decided to check her home office. I knew she kept important documents in the second drawer of her desk, the one she always kept locked, but I had seen where she hid the key, inside a decorative vase on the bookshelf. With my heart pounding, I opened the drawer. There they were: bank statements, contracts, legal documents, and something that chilled me to the bone: a blue folder with my name on the label. Inside were copies of my ID, photocopies of my signature from different years, and what looked like a manual for imitating my handwriting. There were pages and pages where someone had practiced my signature to perfection, but the worst was at the bottom: a sales contract for a condo in River North, valued at $650,000. My supposed signature was on the buyer's line, but I had never seen that document. According to the dates, it had been signed last month. They had bought a condo with my money, behind my back, using my forged signature. My legs trembled so much I had to sit down. I felt nauseous, dizzy, a rage so deep it scared me. They hadn't just stolen from me. They had made me an unwilling accomplice to their fraud. I took pictures of all the documents with my phone, put the key back, and returned to my room just as Chloe was getting out of the shower. "Morning, Mom. You're up already?" Her voice was normal, almost affectionate, as if I hadn't just discovered she was a thief and a forger. "Yes, honey. How did you sleep?" "Fine, fine. Hey, I have a surprise for you today. I've scheduled a tour of that facility we talked about, Maplewood Senior Living, just so you can see it, no strings attached." "Today?" "Yes, at 11. Mark can't make it because of meetings, but I'll go with you. Sound good?" Nothing sounded good. But I needed time to think, to process, to decide my next move. "All right," I replied. Maplewood Senior Living turned out to be a modern complex on the outskirts of Chicago, surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens with views of a forest preserve. From the outside, it looked more like a luxury hotel than a home for the elderly. We were greeted by an elegant woman in her 40s, wearing a navy pantsuit and a professional smile that never wavered. "I'm Carmen Vidal, the director of admissions," she introduced herself, shaking my hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Barbara. Your daughter has told me so much about you." What exactly had she told her? That I was an old woman who wet herself and needed specialized care? The tour began in the main lobby, a spacious area with high ceilings, designer furniture, and decor that tried to be homey but felt cold and impersonal. Elderly people sat on leather sofas, some watching TV, others playing cards, most just staring into space with vacant expressions. Our residents enjoy numerous activities: Carmen explained as we walked. We have craft workshops, adaptive fitness classes, music therapy sessions. We passed the dining hall, where other seniors were eating lunch in silence. The atmosphere was so quiet you could hear the clinking of silverware against plates. The food is overseen by nutritionists specializing in geriatrics, Carmen continued. All diets are tailored to each resident's specific medical needs. Bland, tasteless food, like eating in a hospital. And the rooms? Chloe asked. I'll show you one of our premium single rooms now. We took a modern elevator to the second floor. The room was small but functional. A single bed, a built-in closet, a nightstand, a small TV, and a handicap-accessible bathroom. All rooms have a view of the garden, Carmen said, opening the curtains. And of course, they're equipped with emergency call systems. The window overlooked an inner courtyard where a few residents were being pushed in wheelchairs by aides in white uniforms. It looked like the yard of a psychiatric hospital. What is the monthly cost? Chloe asked, in the tone of someone who had already done the math. For a premium single room, it's $4,500 a month. That includes full board, basic medical services, and all activities. $4,500 a month, almost $54,000 a year. In 5 years, they would have spent a significant chunk of what was left of my money. And then what? Would they kick me out when I couldn't pay? It's an investment in quality of life, Carmen added, turning to me. Here you'll have companionship, specialized medical care, and above all, the peace of mind of knowing you're in good hands. Good hands. As if my own were no longer good enough to care for myself. What do you think, Mom? Chloe asked, with that fake smile she had perfected. It's very nice, I lied. On the way home, Chloe chattered on about the facility's benefits. Did you see how lovely the gardens were? And the staff seemed so friendly. Plus, it's close to home. We can visit whenever we want. Whenever they wanted. Not when I needed company. And think of the peace of mind, Mom. No worries. No cooking, no cleaning, no freedom, no dignity, no reason to get up in the morning. When would I have to move in? Well, Carmen says they have a spot opening up next Monday. It's an opportunity we can't pass up. These top-quality places always have a waiting list. A waiting list to die while still alive. That afternoon, while Chloe was at work and the kids were at school, I called Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, I need to see you urgently. I've discovered something that can't wait. Can you come now? I'm on my way. In his office, I showed him the pictures I'd taken. His expression darkened as he swiped through the images. This is very serious, Barbara. We're talking about forgery, aggravated fraud, misappropriation of funds. Your daughter and son-in-law could face several years in prison. And what can I do? We have 2 options. 1, we press charges immediately and let the police handle it. 2, you confront them directly and give them a chance to make it right before the law gets involved. I thought of my grandchildren. Lily, who at 12 was innocent in all this. Mason, still just a little boy. Did I really want them to see their parents get arrested? What do you advise? As a lawyer, I'd say press charges immediately. As a person who has grandchildren of a similar age, I understand you want to protect them. The decision is yours. I want to confront them first, but I need to be prepared for the worst. Very well. I will prepare a complete complaint with all the documentation. If they don't agree to your demands, we file it immediately. In the meantime, what are you going to ask of them? I thought for a moment. What did I really want? Revenge? Justice? Or just to get my dignity back? I want them to give me back all my money. I want them to cancel the purchase of that condo. And I want them to apologize to me in front of the entire family. And if they refuse, then they can rot in jail. Mr. Miller smiled for the first time since I'd known him. I like your style, Barbara. Let's prepare for this confrontation properly. We agreed he would accompany me to the house on Friday night, when the whole family would be gathered for dinner. It would be my moment to lay my cards on the table. The next 2 days were the hardest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal, smile when they spoke to me, continue being the subservient grandmother they expected. But inside, a storm of emotions was tearing me apart. Rage, sadness, fear, but also something new. Hope. For the first time in a long time, I was in control. On Friday afternoon, As I was getting my clothes ready for the confrontation, I found an old photo at the bottom of a drawer. It was from Chloe's first communion. We were hugging, smiling in front of the church. She was wearing a white dress I had embroidered by hand. I remember her telling me that morning, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be just like you, good and generous." I put the photo in my purse. I would show it to her tonight, to remind her of who she once was. At 8 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. It was Mr. Miller, punctual as always. "Are you ready, Barbara?" "More than ever." I took a deep breath and opened the dining room door, where my family was eating peacefully, with no idea that their lives were about to change forever. When I entered the dining room, followed by Mr. Miller, the silence was immediate. Chloe's fork stopped midair. Mark nervously wiped his lips, his eyes darting between the lawyer and me. The kids just looked curious. "Good evening," Mr. Miller said firmly. "I am David Miller, Mrs. Barbara's attorney. We need to speak with you." Chloe forced a smile. "An attorney? Mom? What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I am perfectly fine, honey. And I'm here to take back what's mine." Mark stood up, trying to take charge. "Look, I don't know what this is about, but we're having a family dinner. Sit down, Mr. Mendoza," the lawyer interrupted with an authority that made Mark obey. "This cannot wait." I took the copies of the documents from my purse and laid them on the table. The bank statements, the forged signatures, the condo contract. "Chloe," I said, my voice steadier than it had been in years. "Can you explain this?" Her face went pale. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about." "You don't? And I suppose you also don't know you've been forging my signature for years to steal my money?" "There's no misunderstanding," I shouted. The first time I'd raised my voice in that house in years. Lily started to cry. "You are thieves! You've stolen everything from me!" Mr. Miller began to read aloud every fraudulent transaction, the transfers, the credit card payments, the car purchases, and finally, the $650,000 condo. "In total," he concluded, "you have illegally taken $780,000 of the $800,000 that belonged to Mrs. Barbara from the sale of her property." Chloe burst into tears. "Mom, please, we take care of you. We give you a home, food, everything you need." "You call this care?" I retorted. "Humiliating me? Making me sleep in a windowless room? Treating me like an unpaid maid?" I pulled out the old notebook. "Here is everything I've spent on you. Over $120,000 of my own money. And you never, ever paid back a single cent." Mr. Miller cleared his throat. "We have enough evidence to file charges for forgery, misappropriation, and aggravated fraud. These are felonies that carry prison sentences of up to 10 years. "Prison?" Chloe whispered. "However," the lawyer continued, "my client is willing to reach a settlement if you agree to her terms." Mark glared at me. "What do you want?" I took a deep breath. "First, I want you to immediately cancel the purchase of the condo and return every dollar you've stolen. Second, I want you to transfer all remaining money from my house sale into a personal account for me. Third, I want a public apology in front of the entire extended family. And if we don't?" Mark challenged. "If you don't, we file the complaint tomorrow morning. And trust me, I'll be in the front row at your sentencing." Chloe stumbled toward me. "Mom, please, think of the children. If we go to prison, what will happen to them? You should have thought of that before you stole from me," I said coldly. Just then, I brought in the suitcase I had packed that afternoon. "I'm leaving tonight. Mr. Miller has found me a room at an inn until this is resolved." "You can't just leave," Chloe wailed. "I'm your mother. I am your mother, but I am no longer your victim." I walked to the door. "You have until Monday. Don't waste this opportunity." I hugged the children goodbye, whispering, "I love you. Never forget that. And when you're older, I hope you understand why Grandma had to do this." I left that house with my suitcase in one hand and my dignity in the other. As the taxi pulled away, Mr. Miller asked me how I felt. I looked back at the building where I had lived for 4 years as a prisoner. "Free," I replied. "For the first time in years, I feel free." And it was true. Despite the pain, despite the uncertainty, for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. The inn where I stayed that night was modest but clean. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself cry. I cried for the mother I had been and the daughter I had lost. But I also cried with relief. I had finally said enough. I had finally found my voice. I was finally in control of my own life. On Saturday morning, I woke up in the inn with a strange feeling. For the first time in years, no one was waiting for me. The silence was liberating. I went down to the small dining room where the owner, a kind woman named Brenda, served me coffee and toast. It was a simple breakfast, but it tasted like freedom. At 10, my phone rang. It was Chloe. "Mom? How did you sleep? Are you okay?" Her voice was small, vulnerable. "I slept perfectly, thank you." "Mom, we've been talking all night. Mark and we want to fix this. We really do." "Wonderful. You know my conditions." "Yes, but could you come home so we can talk? The kids miss you. Mason won't stop asking when you're coming back." "I'm not coming back to that house until you've met every one of my demands." I hung up and turned off my phone. I needed these days for myself. I decided to walk through Chicago. I went to Millennium Park, sat on a bench, and watched the families. I felt a pang of envy seeing an older couple smiling together. Anthony and I were once like that, before life wore us down, before he died and left me to face the greed of our own children. That afternoon, I visited my old neighbor, Carol, in Lincoln Park. She welcomed me with open arms. "Barbara, what a surprise. How are you?" I told her everything. She listened, her indignation growing. "My God, Barbara, how did you put up with it for so long?" "I don't know," I said. "What hurts most isn't the money. It's realizing that while I saw them as my beloved children, they saw me as an income source to be managed until it ran out." "You're 63, Barbara, not 90, she said, taking my hands. "You can still have a full life. Don't let this make you bitter forever." On Sunday, I missed my grandchildren terribly. That afternoon, Lily called me. "Grandma? It's me." Her little voice broke my heart. "Are you going to forgive them? Are you coming home?" "I don't know, Lily. It depends on if your parents are willing to fix their mistakes." I told them to say they're sorry. "You're a very wise little girl." On Monday morning, Mr. Miller called. "Barbara, their lawyer contacted me. They want to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "The terms are clear. They're willing to return the money, but they want to do it in installments. They say they can't cancel the condo purchase immediately, or they'll lose the $60,000 deposit. Then let them lose it. They stole that money from my account." "I understand, but—" "No buts, Mr. Miller. They either meet my exact demands, or we file the complaint. I will not be manipulated any longer." At noon sharp, my phone rang. It was Mark. "Barbara, we'll do what you ask. Everything. We canceled the condo purchase this morning. We lost the deposit, but we understand." "And the rest of the money?" "We're transferring everything that's left to your account this afternoon. It's $120,000. It's all we have liquid. And the other $660,000 you stole from me? That will take time. We used some of it for home improvements, the car. We need to sell some things to get it back." "How much time?" 6 months. "We promise, in 6 months, you'll have all your money back." I didn't trust their promises, but it was a start. "Fine, but I want a legally binding document signed, acknowledging the debt and committing to repayment, with interest, and if you are 1 day late, I file the complaint." "Okay. And Barbara, we're sorry. We really are. You can tell me that in person, in front of the whole family." As we agreed. That afternoon, Lily came to visit me at the inn. She arrived with a paper bag in her hands and her eyes red from crying. "I brought you cookies," she said, pulling out a package of my favorites. "I bought them with my allowance." I hugged her tightly, feeling my heart ache. "Thank you, my love. You're the best granddaughter in the world." "Are you really coming back, Grandma?" "Mason cries every night. He says the house isn't the same without you." "We'll see what happens, sweetie. But no matter what, remember that I will always love you, okay?" That night, as I counted the money Mark had transferred to my account, I realized something important. For the first time in years, I had money that was solely mine, money I didn't have to explain to anyone. It was the first step toward a new life. 3 weeks after that life-changing confrontation, I found myself doing something I hadn't done in years, looking for an apartment for myself. With the $120,000 Mark had transferred, I had enough to rent something decent and live comfortably while I waited for the rest of my money. The real estate agent, a young man named David, showed me a small apartment in the Wicker Park neighborhood. It had 2 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen with a balcony overlooking a quiet street, and most importantly, it was mine. No one was going to decide for me when to cook, what to watch on TV, or if I could have visitors. "What do you think, Barbara?" David asked as he opened the windows to let in the midday light. "I like it," I replied, and it was the first decision I had made about my own life in 4 years. I signed the lease that same afternoon. For the first time since Anthony's death, I had my own home. It was small compared to the Lincoln Park house I had lost, but it was infinitely larger than the windowless room where I had lived like a prisoner. The first few days in my new apartment were a revelation. I could wake up whenever I wanted, have breakfast in my robe, watch the news without anyone changing the channel, and cook whatever I felt like without having to justify my choices. One morning, while sipping coffee on my balcony and watching people pass by, I received an unexpected call. It was Chris, my younger son, from Denver. "Mom, I heard about what happened with Chloe. Why didn't you tell me anything?" Chris had always been the more independent of my children. He'd moved to Denver after college and built his own life without constantly asking for financial help. Our relationship was more distant, but more honest than the one I'd had with Chloe. "I didn't want to worry you, honey." "Worry me? Mom, they robbed you. They treated you like a slave. How could I not be worried?" His outrage surprised me. I had expected him to ask why I had been so hard on his sister, to ask me to forgive and forget for the sake of the family. "Chloe called me crying," Chris continued. "She told me her version of the story, but then I spoke with Mr. Miller. Mom, what they did to you is unforgivable." "You spoke with my lawyer?" "Yes. He showed me all the documents. The forged signatures, the bank transfers, everything. I can't believe my own sister was capable of something like that. For the first time in months, I felt that someone in my family was unconditionally on my side. "I want you to come to Denver for a few days," Chris proposed. "Meet your daughter-in-law properly. Spend time with your other grandkids. Anna and I have a guest room waiting for you." "I don't know, honey. I don't want to be a burden." "A burden? Mom, you're my mother. And unlike some people, I remember everything you've done for us for years." That same week, I flew to Denver. The plane carried me over landscapes I hadn't seen in years. The vast plains of the Midwest, the snow-capped peaks of the Rockies shining under the afternoon sun. It was like seeing America for the first time again. Chris was waiting for me at the airport with Anna, his wife, and my 2 other grandchildren, Carly, who was 10, and Alex, who was 7. I hadn't seen them in over a year. "Grandma!" Carly shouted, running toward me. "Dad told us you're going to stay with us." That little girl's hug healed wounds I didn't even know I had. There was no calculation in her affection, no hidden expectations, just pure, simple love. Chris's house was modest, but cozy. Anna had prepared a classic pot roast, and they had decorated the table with flowers from their garden. During dinner, we talked about everything except Chloe and Mark. It was as if I had rediscovered what it meant to be part of a real family. "Mom," Chris said to me after the kids went to bed, "I want you to know you'll always have a place here. No conditions, no expectations, just because you're our mother, and we love you." That night, lying in their guest room with the windows open and the quiet hum of the suburbs outside, I cried with gratitude. Not all of my family relationships were broken. Not all the love I had given over the years had been wasted. I returned to Chicago after a week in Denver. But I was not the same woman who had left. I had confirmation that I was worthy as a person, as a mother, as a grandmother. Chris and his family had given me back the self-confidence that Chloe and Mark had systematically destroyed. Back in my apartment, I decided to do something I had been putting off for years. I signed up for a painting class at a nearby community center. I had always loved to draw, but never had the time to develop the hobby. The instructor, Martha, was a woman my age who had started painting after retiring from her job as a nurse. "It's never too late to discover talents you didn't know you had," she told me on the first day, as she taught me how to mix colors on the palette. The class was full of older people who, like me, had decided to dedicate time to themselves after years of caring for others. There was a gentleman named John who painted seascapes because they reminded him of his youth sailing on Lake Michigan. A woman named Patricia who painted portraits of her grandchildren from old photographs. Another man, Frank, painted abstracts full of color and energy. For the first time in years, I had conversations about something other than family problems or domestic needs. We talked about art, techniques, and places we had traveled. It was stimulating to feel intellectually alive again. A month after starting the class, I finished my first complete painting, a sunrise over Lake Michigan, with oranges and pinks reflecting on the calm water. When I was done, I stared at it for several minutes. It was imperfect, but it was mine. I had created it with my own hands following my own vision. "It's beautiful," Martha said when she saw my work. "You have a natural talent for color." That afternoon, I hung the painting on my living room wall, right above the sofa. It was the first decoration I had chosen for my own home in years. As I contemplated my work, the phone rang. It was Chloe. "Mom, how are you?" Her voice sounded different, more humble, less demanding. "I'm fine, Chloe. Very well. I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened. And I think you were right. We treated you badly. Very badly." It was the first time I heard her admit her responsibility without excuses. "I'm glad you realize that. Could you come for dinner on Sunday? The whole family will be here. Chris is coming from Denver with Anna and the kids. We want to apologize to you in front of everyone, like you said." The public apology I had demanded. It was finally happening. "And Mark? Does he want to apologize too?" "Yes, Mom. Both of us. And we want to talk to you about the money. We've managed to sell some things. We have another payment ready for you." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse, to keep my new independent life free of family complications. But another part, the part that still remembered the little girl Chloe once was, wanted to give her a chance. "All right. I'll be there on Sunday." "Really? Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much. But let's be clear. I am coming as a guest, not as a housekeeper. I won't be cooking or cleaning or looking after anyone. Of course. We want to try to fix things." After hanging up, I looked at my painting again. The sunrise over the lake reminded me that after the darkest nights, the light always comes. Perhaps my family could have its own dawn too. That night, I went to sleep with a mature hope of building something new from the ruins of what had been. My new life had begun, with or without them. On Sunday, I arrived at Chloe's house at 2 in the afternoon. I wore my favorite navy blue dress, one I'd bought with my own money, and carried a bouquet of flowers I had picked out at the market. They weren't flowers to decorate her table, but a gift a guest brings to her hosts. Mark opened the door. He looked nervous. "Barbara, welcome. Thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting me," I replied formally. The living room was full. Chris and Anna were there from Denver with Carly and Alex. Lily and Mason ran to me as soon as they saw me. "Grandma, you look so pretty," Lily exclaimed. "Is that a new dress?" "Yes, my love. I bought it last week." Chloe approached with a tense smile. "Mom, you look radiant. Have you lost weight?" It was true. When you cook for yourself, when no one makes you feel guilty for every bite, food becomes a pleasure again. "I feel better," I answered simply. The table was set with the good china. Chloe had made my favorite pot roast. After dessert, Chloe stood up. "Before we have coffee, there's something Mark and I want to say." The room fell silent. "Mom," she began, her voice trembling, "I've realized we treated you in an unforgivable way." Mark stood as well. "Barbara, what we did, stealing your money, forging your signature, treating you like a burden, there's no excuse. It was despicable." Chloe began to cry. "You gave us everything your whole life, and we paid you back with betrayal and humiliation." "I became a person I don't recognize," Mark continued. "Someone capable of stealing from the woman who had been like a mother to me." Before I could respond, Chloe turned to her own children. "Yes, Lily. Daddy and I did something very wrong. We took money that belonged to Grandma without asking, and we treated her badly when we should have taken care of her." "Why?" Mason asked with the brutal honesty of a child. Mark knelt down to his son's level. Because we thought more about ourselves than about her. Because we were selfish and cowardly. And that's wrong, Mason. Very wrong. I was moved that they weren't trying to protect their image in front of their kids. Mom, Chloe continued, turning back to me, I know we may never earn back your trust, but I want you to know we have changed. We are changing. I pulled a document from my purse that Mr. Miller had prepared. This is a repayment plan for the money you stole, I said, placing it on the table. I received the first $120,000. That leaves $660,000 to be returned. Mark nodded. We sold the new car and some jewelry. We have another $80,000 ready to transfer tomorrow. And the rest? We're going to sell some other things. The expensive furniture we bought with your money, my watch. We figure in 6 months we can pay back another $200,000. And the remaining $380,000. Chloe took a deep breath. We're taking out a second mortgage on the house. I know it sounds dramatic, but it's what's fair. I was surprised. I had expected excuses, vague promises. They were talking about real sacrifices. There's one more thing, Mark added. We want you to personally oversee every payment. To have access to our bank accounts to verify we're complying. We don't want you to trust our words anymore. We want you to trust provable facts. I accept your apology, I said finally, and I accept the repayment plan. But you need to understand something. I am not the same person I was. What do you mean? Chloe asked. I mean, I've discovered I can live alone, make my own decisions, and be happy without depending on you. I'm taking a painting class. I have new friends. I have my own apartment. Does that mean you don't want to be part of the family anymore? Mark asked, confused. It means I want to be part of the family on equal terms. I am no longer the grandmother who is available 24/7. I am Barbara, a 63-year-old woman with her own life. Chloe nodded slowly. I understand. And I think that's how it should have been from the start. Before I left, Lily showed me a drawing she'd made. It was a portrait of the whole family smiling, but this time I was in the center, not off to the side. 6 months later, while working on my 10th painting in my sunny Wicker Park apartment, the phone rang. It was Mr. Miller. Barbara, I've just received the final transfer. Your children have completed the full repayment of your money, with interest as we agreed. $790,000 in my account. All of my money had come home. That evening, I reflected on the past year. I had lost a dysfunctional family and gained one that respected me. I had lost a house where I was invisible and gained a home where I was myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Grandma, can I come watch you paint tomorrow? I smiled as I replied, Of course, my love. I'll show you my new painting. Sometimes, to find your place in the world, you have to be willing to lose everything. Sometimes, family isn't where you're born, but where you're valued. And sometimes, the most beautiful life begins the moment you decide you deserve respect. Have you lived through something similar? Do you know someone who has had to fight to reclaim their dignity within their own family? Tell me in the comments. If this story touched your heart, hit the like button and subscribe. Your support helps these messages reach people who need to hear that it's never too late to rebuild your life with dignity.